All right, let's get our Facebook friends up in here before it's officially time to go. All right, spinning wheels, 1 and 2. Let's give it a second to breathe. And welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by tonight, Scott Kennedy, filling in for Luke Patterson. Scott, I feel like I just saw you. How you doing? See you rocking Chelsea today as well. Hopefully things went well for you.
Yeah, just about everything I wore was yesterday. It's
Yeah.
nice. I've said kind of like winning a Thursday night game. It's nice when you can clinch what you want to clinch on a Tuesday and let everybody else play on Wednesday. So things were good, but it's gotten cool. So most everything I own is Chelsea related. So yeah, we put on a little jacket and it's cooled off. It's cooled off here in Atlanta. Fall is here, and the weather in London is very similar. Headed that direction tomorrow. And it should be an interesting trip. Lots to talk about tonight.
Yeah, lots to talk about tonight. Really a fun episode still. Get to talk about Russell Wilson. Sounds like he's cleared himself. We'll see if the team doctors do it. A lot of interesting things going on with the Broncos in the trade circulation right now. Could they go 3-5? Could they go 2-6? I don't know. We'll see. I'll take blame here for being a little bit late today. Plugged in my GPS and it said 25 minutes longer than expected. I guess the vice president is in Seattle right now, which closes down half the roads and makes things kind of kerfuffled here. But let's say hello to some people in the chat saying, Dylan Varnox, good to see you, saying, sup Broncos country. Make sure you guys hit a like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. We also got Beto Garcia coming in here saying, I think Russ threw his teammates under the proverbial bus today. He works out while everybody sleeps. What did you think about the Russell Wilson high knees for 4 to 8 hours while everybody else sleeps on the
just in case you aren't familiar what Beto is talking about, what Nick is talking about, let's have a listen. I don't think it plays as bad as it reads.
Okay.
It reads just cringeworthy, and
Cringy.
It might be a little bit. It still feels a little tone deaf when you're watching. It's like, oh, everybody's laughing. It's like nobody's laughing with you, Russ. But here, have a listen, everybody.
So the first 2 hours, I was. I don't really get jet lag too often. I don't really. I've traveled enough to get kind of get my system down. But yeah, for me, I was on the plane. First 2 hours, I was. First 2 hours, about 8 hours flight here. So the first 2 hours, I was watching the film, watching all the cut-ups and everything else. And then for the next 4 hours, I was doing treatment on the plane. I was walking up and down the aisles. Everybody was knocked out. I was doing high knees and working on my legs and everything else, making sure I'm ready to rock. So that was good. And then the last 2 hours, the last hour of that, I fell asleep for 1 hour, and then I watched the film the rest. So I felt good to go once we got back. And then we had, coaches did a great job.
He's a Dorcas, man. There's nothing else to say.
It feels like it just feels a little tone deaf, honestly.
Yeah.
Where you guys are, the questions before that were everybody's talking about Bradley Chubb and Jerry Jeudy being traded. Your head coach, his job is on the hot seat, is in jeopardy, largely because of you. And he's still, oh yeah, man, everything's great. Love it. It's not playing very well. It's just not. It's not. And Rado Gibbo says, I don't understand why everyone is up in arms about that. Like I said, it doesn't. When you read the quotes, it's like, oh, good Lord. And when you're watching it, it doesn't come off that bad. It's no big deal. It's just, again, it comes off a little bit tone deaf to me. As far as like, I'm going to, make a big deal out of it. No. But a big deal is being made of it, so we're going to address it.
Yeah.
And those were my thoughts, Nick. It just comes off tone deaf when people are talking about your teammates are going to get traded, your head coach is getting fired, largely because of you, and you're still here high as a kite.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an interesting fella. I think that's the way to put it right now. But we'll see. It's definitely, again, you need to watch Step Brothers, but I just keep coming back to the scene where they're interviewing with Seth Rogen wearing the tuxes in the sports apparel store. They're interviewing for custodians. They're like, oh, you guys wear tuxes for a custodial interview? It's like, heck yeah, that's how we roll. It's like, that's awesome. I love that. And then John C. Reilly rips the biggest flatulence you ever heard. And then Seth Rogen's like, is that onions and ketchup? He's like, yeah. It's like, now the suits seem kind of effed up. Like, get out of here. So that's how I feel like about Russell Wilson at this point. It's like all this is now starting to feel a little bit effed up, but I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill here, hearing that. He's just dialed in, and he wants everybody to know that he's dialed in as well. Kevin Gray coming in. I need to see action.
And that's the other part of it, Nick, real quick, is, again, that's still tone deaf to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he asks, you know, what do you think about Nathaniel Jackett's job being on the hot seat? Like, 3 of the first things he said were I, and me. You know, and he finally gets around to it. It's like, you know, it is, they have placated to him, and I've tried not to believe it. You know, he's the one that's creating this offense and he's writing the play. And I'm like, well, it's not his. Russell Wilson doesn't have an offense. Hell, maybe he does. Maybe we're seeing it. Maybe this is it. But that's why you don't let your quarterback be an offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of did let Peyton Manning do that, but Peyton Manning's a different caliber than Russell. Russell Wilson's been great in his career to date. Not so far this year, but Peyton Manning, first ballot Hall of Famer before he came to Denver. Kevin Gray coming in saying, I need to see some action. I'm sick of the excuses. Russ needs to humble the coach. Needs to get humble. The coach needs to let someone else call plays. Evening Broncos country, let's ride. And how dare you exist? Coming in here saying mismatched uniforms top to bottom, off and on the field embarrassment. Yeah, that's the uniform design that they're going with, the white tops with the navy blue swoosh and then the navy blue bottoms, the orange swoosh. They are pretty gross and embarrassing. But you know what's even more gross and embarrassing? Getting your data leaked. Broncos country, if you're like me, you're increasingly getting more concerned about cybercrime with people stealing your private data and invading your privacy. But I'm not that tech savvy at all. That's why I use NordVPN on all my browsers, whether it's my desktop, tablet, laptop, or phone. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and NordVPN protects you as a one-stop shop for all things cybersecurity. It's incredibly easy for anyone to use, which means I don't have to be an MIT graduate to figure it out. With just one click, I'm protected. It's very intuitive to use. With my NordVPN account, I can have up to 6 devices protected. I no longer have to worry about hackers, malicious sites, and pop-ups. For the price of a single cup of coffee per month, I have complete peace of mind knowing that my devices and data is protected. Plus, with NordVPN, I never have to be a slave to media blackouts. I can switch my virtual location to a market that is showing the NFL game that I want to watch so I don't miss out and can watch the action live. And let me tell you, that's a big bonus for me living on the West Coast. When the Broncos are playing that second afternoon slate, I don't want to watch the Seahawks. I want to watch the Broncos. Broncos country, make sure you grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/MHH to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's nordvpn.com/MHH to get 4 months free. Try it today.
Yep. Again, having that VPN and being able to get the different locales, what a bonus. So thanks to NordVPN, and check them out. You will the code should be in the description. If it's not, I'll make sure it's there before too long. So check it out. The title of the show, there's lots of stuff going on. I wanted to hit on the uniforms as well, which you did. I know people love talking uniforms. As long as they don't match whatever. Yeah, but their colors are good. As long as they're not like grotesque, it doesn't bother me too badly. I'm not going to get too worked up. It's really hard to mess up the orange and blue of the Denver Broncos. It's really hard to make that look bad. So you got a mismatch, which so what? No big deal. I want to say hello to some more folks in the chat real quick. Phil McLaughlin coming in. Say good evening, Nick and Deacon Scott. Howdy. I will say Russ is consistent, always a nerd. Go Broncos. Again, all I would say is I'm his PR manager is just, read the room. That's all. No big deal. I will be traveling overnight here. Someone asked, how's London, Scott? I leave tomorrow. I'll get there Friday morning. I'll get up and stretch around. No big deal. I don't need to talk about it, everything and all that. But, nobody's sitting there asking me questions about it. Again, just read the room is all I would say. I don't think it's any big deal. But again, it just comes off a little tone deaf. Andrew Lampy coming in with some stars, says, thanks for all the hard work, especially during these hard times. Can you guys touch on the trade rumors and compensation? Absolutely. I think Dalton Reisner has been thrown in there. Hamler, Judy, Chubb, some of the guys that are out there. Chubb might be the only one that gets you anything in return that you think, okay, that's a decent deal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're selling, the two words you hate the worst, Nick. Maybe the two you hate the worst. Mine's probably off ball. Yours is selling low.
Yeah. Yeah, right now those are the four that have names have come up, and Bradley Chubb. It does sound like, asking around, the Eagles were very interested in Bradley Chubb as well, but they went for the cheaper, more short-term move with Robert Quinn, traded from the Bears to the Eagles. But it also sounds like with the Bradley Chubb deal, a contract may be coming on the back end of a deal that, if it does happen, what I find interesting about this is that there's one other player that, from a talent, ability, and youth and contract structure, makes sense to be whispered so far as a trade guy, but he's not. So I think it is worth noting the guys who are right now being floated versus who isn't. Obviously, Bradley Chubb, the Broncos made a lot of moves this offseason at the edge spot. I'm a big Bradley Chubb fan, liked them when they drafted him. Obviously, been up and down to date because of the injuries, but he might be your second best player so far this season behind Patrick Surtain. Playing great football, finally healthy. Gonna have to pay him this offseason if you keep him, but Broncos made a lot of moves this offseason to be in a position where they can move on from Bradley Chubb. They paid Randy Gregory. They drafted Nick Bonito. They moved Baron Browning to edge. They also have Jonathan Cooper. I mean, they have some talent at edge for the foreseeable future with that, with Browning's contract, the light at the end of the tunnel on that one. So maybe they were always setting themselves up to move on from Chubb. And now that the Broncos are 2-5, potentially 2-6 with the loss this week, you accelerate that process. After that, it's Judy and Hamler. Hamler's been injured. I wouldn't do that one. Now you talk about really selling low on that one. I would probably just keep him around, see if we can get the explosive play, and maybe trade him in the offseason, because if you trade Judy, guess what? You're going to have reps there for somebody to increase his stock. Judy, from what I can gather, there's people in the front office in Denver that aren't as high on him as the previous regime, and they might be more willing to move on from him. I said it all offseason. I was curious about the stylistic fit between Russell Wilson and Jerry Jeudy, if that worked out. So Judy would surprise me. I think Judy and Chubb would surprise me the least. Bringing it back full circle, though, the one name who makes sense trade-wise that hasn't been floated at all, Draymond Jones. Last year of his contract, he's probably going to get paid as well. The fact that you haven't heard him, but you've heard these other ones, make me think that Broncos would be fine to move these guys. They want to hang on to Draymond Jones.
Or he's the one that's being moved.
Or that.
Look at the squirrel. Hey, look, squirrel.
Yeah.
Draymond Jones, where'd he come from?
Yeah.
StreamYard's showing me my internet is connection to StreamYard's a little off, so hopefully it's
You look
okay. But appreciate the stars, Andrew. The compensation, again, it's probably not going to be what you want it to be. It's not a quarterback. You're selling low at this point. Hamler surprised me a little bit, but if Hamler could, that makes sense. He was upset. Receivers are upset. Of course they are interested in being moved. Naj Altaf coming in. We're coming back to the Russell Wilson. This is who Russell Wilson is. He tries to stay positive through the adversity. He's getting crushed nationally. Loser, worst quarterback ever, bad teammate, etc. I like his positive, goofy attitude. He knows what he has to do, which is win. Yeah, I don't. It's no big deal. To me, it's no big deal. But it is something that is being made a big deal of. So we're going to comment on it. And it isn't. Especially when you listen to it and you read things out of context and you just read tone. That's why text isn't the best form of communication. You read tone into it where you can just pick up a phone and say, hey, this is what I meant. It's very, very different. And you watch them on there and people, again, like I said, if you hadn't seen it, that's why I wanted to show it to you so you'd have the context. People are like, wait, that's what everybody's making a big deal about? Yeah, exactly. It's not that big a deal. Naj is a big deal to Mile High Huddle, and we appreciate you coming in. And he does. They have to win. It's going to shut everybody up if you can start stacking a couple wins. But right now it's 2-5, and it's not looking all that good. Phil asked, are you broadcasting from London? I might be. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do yet. I'll work on Chad with it. I will make some appearances. Probably the times when I'll be available to do it, that would make sense while I'm over there. Nobody's gonna be awake. There's nothing. There's nobody to do it. Maybe. So it's like, I could do a pregame show. What is that? 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Mountain Time. So, but I definitely want to do I want to be a guest on the Gut Reaction, and I want to do some fan stuff. So if you see me walking around, come say hi. I'd love to do some fan things. And then real quick, and I'll toss it back over to you, Nick. Patrick comes in. How you doing, Patrick? He says, I have some people arguing with me about needing to send New Orleans picks and not just money to get a coach to talk. If that is the direction they want to go in, they don't have to send anything. It's completely up to New Orleans. They could just give them to you. They could send you a first-round pick. It is up to New Orleans for what they will accept. They have the rights to the contract. They could turn them loose for zero, technically speaking. Now, they may demand draft picks in the trade, but they don't have to. You have to compensate New Orleans for the rights to that contract. Could be a bag of Lion coffee, Patrick. So tell them they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and who knows what happens. We'll see. Dallas is playing great football so far this season. I know that Dallas has been the one that's been heavily linked to Sean Payton, but that looks like a team that maybe they'll give Mike McCarthy another year, or maybe they don't want to lose Dan Quinn. Maybe they'll promote Dan Quinn to the head coach. Who knows? But definitely a possibility for Denver, especially now that the Broncos have this new ownership in place. They can throw money at some problems. Doesn't mean it's going to be solved, but they can do that. Another thing that says, oh, how do you know, Nick, they'll actually do that? They agreed to take on the Christian McCaffrey salary, apparently. Denver offered a fourth, I think is what the rumor was. It's not a small bid to bring on Christian McCaffrey's contract now. I know not all guaranteed, but you're still on the hook for a lot of it. So definitely something to keep an eye on here. And heck, there's still a chance out there in reality where the Broncos turn this around and Hackett keeps his job. I mean, let's live in that reality for at least a little bit. Just trying to be positive here. We got JC Bio coming in saying, how's it, Nick and Scott? Saw the tweet and had to come in and show some love on Twitch. Thank you so much, JC Bio. We appreciate you so much, and hope you're enjoying things out there on Twitch. Also, Malcolm Brown coming in, $2. Scott, is there food in London that you want? I know the answer to this one.
My wife just said the same thing to me. She's like, you're going to starve. I'll take a box of like protein bars with me for an emergency. But when I'm over there, London's an international city, so I find I can find Mexican food, Italian food, Thai food, all those type of things, basically anything but American bar food, and shepherd's pie or whatnot. I'm good. Fish and chips. I'll eat the chips. And I'm good, but give me some coffee. I'll find some oatmeal. I'll find some eggs and omelets. I'll be just fine. It's actually a good opportunity for me. I use these trips kind of as like a cleanse from all the crap I've been eating. I just spent 2 days in New Orleans and probably had 500 pounds of sugar. So let's but I'm leaving. Like I said, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Gonna spend the day in Boston. I'd never been to Boston, so I set up a connection to save some money by going to Boston, and I'll have most of the day there, and then I'll do the red eye out of Boston to London and get there Friday morning. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and as a note there, Scott and I will both be traveling tomorrow, so no Broncos for breakfast. Consider this Broncos for breakfast for dinner. Yep, a breakfast early today. We appreciate that. Breakfast may be over in London. I don't know what time it is right now, but it's probably approaching breakfast time at some point. We got a lot of talk here about Hackett. Scott, Carl and I talked about it last night. What are the odds that you think that Hackett is left on the proverbial tarmac after this Jags game? Is it just an easy loss? Is it another boneheaded decision? Does it have to be a bad game? Do you have any vibes on this or feelings?
It's not just us. Reading Don Graziano and Jeremy Fowler this morning on ESPN Insider. They were speculating that this could be it. This could be it. It wouldn't totally surprise me. Again, you're dealing with new ownership. This isn't our guy. Again, going back to last year, you remember me saying, I can't believe that George Payton kept Vic Fangio. As a new regime coming in, you want your guy. They might want their guy. And if this is it, he needs to give up play calling duties. It's like, man, you just hired the guy. And one of the reasons you hired the guy was so he could be the offensive coordinator and call plays. That's the main reason you hired him. Why keep him around then? Just to cut his legs out from underneath him. He will be fine. I mean, he will get another job really quickly. There's been a lot of bad luck that has gone against him, but he hasn't helped himself in a lot of these situations. Colin says, don't fire him, make him stay and suffer with the rest of us. That's funny. Colin, that's funny. That's too quick. Make him suffer. Death is too quick.
We got David Bingaman coming in here over on YouTube saying, I can't understand why we would trade Chubb. Why would the Broncos trade Bradley Chubb? He's having a career year. Keep him and pay him or tag him. We gave up Von, not him too. It's a little bit different trading Bradley Chubb versus trading Von Miller, in my opinion, at least. The Broncos last season were not going anywhere without a franchise quarterback, although you can argue maybe they don't have franchise quarterback still based on what we've seen so far, but I digress. The other thing is the age difference. But Bradley Chubb, 26 years old, 25 years old versus a maybe 27, I don't know, versus Von Miller, who was 4 or 5 years older, which is an eternity in the NFL for a non-quarterback, non-kicker kind of position. Now that Von is still not incredible, but you'd expect Chubb to have a longer career left than what Von Miller has left. So that's probably the biggest thing here. I don't know. I mean, I see it both ways. If you don't have Chubb in your long-term plans and you were planning on letting him potentially walk and test the market at the end of this season anyway, then you probably should try to maximize the value, especially if you're 2-6. You save a little bit of money as well doing that you can roll over into next season. But I'm with you, David. Unless somebody's offering me the equivalent of 2 second-round picks, I'm probably not even close to listening. I'd be hanging up immediately, and I'd rather keep Chubb, tag him. I know that's a big hit, but he's a damn good player at the second most valuable position in football. I mean, he'd be in your long-term plans, I would like to imagine, if that was the case.
I'm not big on the idea of tagging him just yet. He's good. He's not 25 million good. Not just yet. That said, David, you're having conversations with his agent. As a general manager, I'm talking with his agent right now about an extension. And if we are miles apart, and I get the feeling there's just no chance I'm going to bring him back, that I'm going to be able to bring him back, then why not try and get something if you fall to 2-6? It's like, as you say, we gave up Vaughn. You did. You weren't going anywhere, and you got 2 draft picks out of it. You got a second and a third. What'd that turn into? Benito and Dulcich? So you traded him for 2 players. That's what you did, because Vaughn wasn't coming back. Vaughn could have come back after the season. You could have gotten those 2 players and gotten Vaughn back. But Vaughn wasn't coming back. He was going to get my last contract type of deal from another contender. Again, you think the Denver Broncos are contenders in the offseason. He wasn't going to turn down the Bills, whether you traded him, the Bills offer, when he hit free agency, whether you traded him or not. So if you can't bring Chubb back, what can you get for him? Can you get something for him if you fall to 2-6 and the season looks like it's over anyway? Now, if you believe that you are a contender, you're into something, you need help, you can win something meaningful down the line, then no, you don't get rid of him at all. He's too valuable to the team. If you don't, it's time to start looking to the future a little bit. And the future could be as soon as next year. You can get guys that can help your team. You get a couple of second-round picks. Give me a center and a guard in the second round next year. My team just got better. The Denver Broncos got better. Appreciate the comment, David.
Yeah, appreciate it. Joe Brewer coming in here. Interesting one here saying Hackett needs to go and bring in the Denver Broncos need to bring in a head coach that won't let Wilson try his ideas on the field. So I think that Joe is saying here, bringing in a quarterback that's got a little bit more backbone to him and can tell Wilson what the law is. What do you think about this? You kind of talked about it a little earlier, not rolling your eyes, but dismissing a little bit that Russell Wilson has a large say in what's going on offensively. Seems like maybe that's more of a possibility. Guys seem open. I think right now the biggest issue is just lack of execution. They're creating penalties. Russ is missing guys. The sequencing of plays isn't great, and that's all leading to a master cluster. But as far as a offensive mind in here that is running his system rather than Wilson, I mean, you still need to put Wilson in the best position to succeed. I think the big conflict here, in my opinion, is that the idealized Wilson for himself might be different than actual what's good for Russell Wilson and how he needs to play offensively to be the best version of himself.
The big conflict to me is your offensive line stinks.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. There's the big conflict. That's the elephant in the room. All this other stuff, great. Your offensive line stinks. Anytime why is Russ having trouble? Because he's uncomfortable in the pocket. Well, he's not a pocket passer. Well, there is no pocket. He's in a trash compactor. The things coming in on him all around him. And it's only getting worse. It didn't get better when Bowles went out. It's getting worse, not better. But yes, at the end of the day, someone's got to be in charge. Who is it? Does Russell Wilson have the ability to undermine Nathaniel Hackett because of his relationship and $250 million with George Payton? Maybe. But Hackett is the one that's kind of a national punchline right now. Well, they both are. But, because of the pull that Russell Wilson has and the me, I want this to be let Russ cook movement, forcing his way out of Seattle to a certain extent. He's a target too. Don't get me wrong. Or at least let me correct myself. But Hackett's the head coach, and he's the one that's ultimately going to be held the most accountable. He's the one. It's easier to change him than it is Russell Wilson, just based on the contract. Miguel's coming in. He says, with some stars, says, "Sup, fellas, you think Denver is confident in the depth at edge to trade Chubb?" Nick, you hit on this a little bit. Randy Gregory, question mark. We talked about the health question marks of these guys, but Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, Nick Bonito. The answer might be yes, Nick, especially building for life without Chubb. Did they set themselves up to live life without Chubb, and maybe they can get something in return?
Yeah, 100%. And there's like a super chat here that I can't get because there's a blocked comment by it. So there it is. There we go. RD coming in with a Canadian $10. Hello, saying, "Did you listen to Hackett explain why he didn't run the ball at all in a one-score game with a backup quarterback? I can't see how we can improve with him. That's horrible, independent of quarterback play." I mean, it's pretty obvious watching the play calling, especially the last two and a half weeks, that the Broncos offensive play callers don't trust the offensive line to run block or block in general, one iota. But I agree with you. At some point, you need to be a little bit patient and maybe even stubborn, where you're out there playing Brett Rippon in a one-score game, running the ball for 3.8 yards per carry, I think it was, which is not great, but it's not like you're averaging 2. So with 46 dropbacks with Brett Rippon, I mean, are you kidding me? That's just, I don't get it. And I understand, like, if you have even a starting level quarterback, depending on what the box count is and what the numbers say, going for the passes and the runs, but it's Brett Rippon. I mean, I know there's some Brett Rippon truthers out there, but come on, 46 dropbacks in a one-score game where your offensive line is struggling. Protect the guy, for God's sake, and protect yourself. I mean, God, I don't even know what to say to that one. That's just wild to see in hindsight.
Yeah, again, Brett Rippon he's not an NFL quarterback for the long haul. It's just not. 46 passes in a man, what would you need? 16 points, 12 points to win this game? At no point, I think we said it in our gut reaction, basically was, if Zach Wilson could go 3 and out and punt the ball, they were going to win. They were going to win. And once they took the lead. And that's not just on Rippon. Again, the offensive line to me is a problem. I've hit on this a zillion times, but it's easier to run it than it is to pass protect for a backup quarterback that really doesn't have a future in the NFL.
100%.
RD, appreciate coming in from Canada, coming in yellow. Big help to the show. Thank you for the stars, my friend.
Up north there, and I think I forgot to turn off my heat. So if you hear a running behind me, I'm going to try to mute myself. I'd forgot until just now. But Douglas Wall coming in saying, "It doesn't make any sense to trade anyone when half the team is on the injured reserve. There are no players to replace the traded players." What do you think about this, Scott?
Douglas, where do you think the team's going to be? You lose to the Jaguars, who have lost 5 in a row, and you're now 2-6. What would that mean? That you've lost 5 in a row? You're looking to next year. You've bailed on this season. Again, what are your goals for the season? To survive? There's players to have out there. Would it help? Did the Carolina Panthers traded away 2 playmakers and went out there and whooped the Buccaneers? Maybe a shakeup and some accountability. Didn't we get flagged the other day for, I used a phrase about accountability? Make an example of somebody. Maybe that's what you need to do. Guys, nobody's untouchable in here, and especially that Russell Wilson guy. Again, Nathaniel Hackett has to be in charge, and right now, it doesn't appear that he is, Nick. But why?
Yeah,
would it make
100%.
sense to trade anyone when half the team is on IR? Douglas, does it matter? Does it matter who's out there right now? You're not winning games.
if you're 2-6, it's evaluation time, unfortunately, and you need to find capital. That way you give yourself the ability to make more moves next season. And I know there's a conversation or a talking point out there. Well, any rookies you take are going to probably, not be ready for 2 years from now. You still need quality depth. You want young, cost-controlled guys, which then gives you resources to go spend money elsewhere on the offense, or I said on the offense, but on the whole team. And also those picks that you get can be traded for quality vets that can fill spots. I mean, if the Broncos were in a good spot, maybe they could go out there this offseason and trade a pick for somebody like a Robert Quinn to fill a spot for one season. And that extra pick you brought in is the reason you can make that move on top of the salary cap that you create there. So again, I would rather keep Bradley Chubb long-term because good edge rushers are hard to find. And he's playing like a top 10 edge rusher this season. I don't think that's overstated. His pressures are insane. Hitting the quarter, I think he's top 10 in quarterback hits, top 10 in quarterback pressures, 5.5 sacks is top 3 in football so far this season. And that's with very limited pin your ears back snap rushing snaps because of how bad the offense has been. Can't imagine how much better they'd be if the Broncos actually, had a double digit lead halfway through the third quarter. They're just not getting those chances to pin their ears back, and he's still producing.
We talked about that a lot, that there should be more sacks because you should be playing with a lead more often. Oops.
Yeah.
Chris Hernandez coming in with some stars, friend of the show. He says, I really would like Wilson to rest this weekend since the bye is coming up. Guess we will see if it's trick or treat. If he pronounces himself ready and doesn't play, there's a power move right there, right? There's that, no, you're going to sit down for another week. We're going to get you right. I'm in charge. We're going to get right. We might lose this game and I might be gone, but you'll be better off for it. That'd be a bold decision from Hackett for sure.
And I wish we could get this information, and we probably won't. But if it does come down to it, I wonder if George Paton would have the authority to call down and be like, listen, he might say he's good to go, but that's our, whatever $250,000 asset. I know you're billion, excuse me. Yeah. Billion with a B asset there. I know that your job may be on the line here, but foot down, man. I'm the one in charge here on this one, at least coming from the top. Maybe even the ownership steps down and says something like that. Good luck, Hackett. Win one with Rippon against a poor, talented, but poor so far this season Jags team. Albert Knopper's coming in saying, sorry, have to go. We'll be listening later. That's awesome. Go Broncos, go MHH. And don't forget to smile, like, and share, y'all. Absolutely. Tim Durr also coming in here saying, hey,
Appreciate
it's Broncos for
here,
breakfast.
Albert, and we'll see you later.
See you later, Albert. Always good to see you. Tim Durr in the house saying, hey, it's Broncos for breakfast for dinner. Always good to see you in here. I don't know if I showed Kathy Lund, but we got Michaela Israel coming in here as well saying it's literally like things look like they are working and they are all moving the ball, and then all of a sudden they go completely away from that. I think a lot of that is this team just consistently has shot itself in the foot prior to last week with penalties and negative plays. I mean, you're moving the ball, but you can't do the consistent execution down to down where like a 3rd and 7 is, you might as well punt it at that point, right? Because you're constantly behind the sticks and putting yourself in negative situations and predictable situations at that.
I remember the first game against the Seahawks. I said, I'm listening to the game and Javonte Williams is like 3 carries, 36 yards, and he finished with like 5 carries. It was crazy. Yeah. Did he get hurt? What happened? I know Miners went out, but still, it's almost like, you fall in love with the pass. The offensive coordinator falls in love with the pass. And, is Russell Wilson checking out of stuff too much? I don't know that, but when I don't think Brett Rippon is checking into 46 or has the authority to check into 46 passes for sure. Lawrence Rivera asked the question. He says, what's up, guys? Appreciate you coming in with the stars, Lawrence. Why does Peyton even get to rebuild us? Once he loses his head coach, he's lost his number one choice for head coach. He's going to be questioning all his decisions now that ownership feels embarrassed. Nathaniel Hackett had a moment of truth that didn't play very well, and part of that is, learning what not to say. He says, I second guess everything I do. Well, we all do. We all do. We take that, we weigh the pros and cons, we make a decision, and part of that little voice in your head might say, what if? That's natural. But he came out and said it. And you don't need to say that. Yes, I second guess everything I do. Well, we all do. We obsess. If you have a mind like a coach, these guys don't sleep a whole lot. So second guessing, no big deal. I think we'd have a more collaborative coaching search for if they do this again. But as far as personnel building, I feel like and contract structure and salary cap management, I think Peyton has done a good job in his 1+ years here, right? This is just his second year, isn't it? It's not even been a full 2 years. Made some mistakes that we can second guess, that we first guessed. My biggest concern has still been the offensive line. You know, how come there hasn't been done more to address the offensive line? We already talked about your $250 million 2 first-round quarterbacks. You went and got a couple of retread right tackles and then didn't do anything else. Man, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And you have to think, we said this last year, we look like idiots. Has to be addressed this offseason, right, Nick?
Yeah, it does. And I think it will be, I think a big thing also that we've talked about on here, but thinking back to this offseason that we did not discuss enough is the drop-off, the inevitable drop-off from Mike Munchak to whoever was going to come in behind him. But Butch Berry specifically, I mean, there was rumors in the offseason, in mini camps and OTAs that some of the offensive linemen were not jiving the best with Butch Berry, and maybe it's unfair to totally bury him after half a season, but this is pretty much until the Garrett Bowles injury, I guess, but was pretty much the same offensive line as last season, and they were incredibly worse. Run blocking, pass blocking, they were so much worse out there. Now, some of that is because of the wide zone, I'm sure, but looking at the run splits this season, pretty similar to last season. This has been a team that's been leaning on the inside zone, probably because they don't have the personnel to run that outside zone like they like to. So they're running the same kind of run scheme. They have the same guys. They're that much worse. What's changed? Quarterback, that's probably partially of it. But the offensive line coach, I think that's the big one here. And just losing Mike Munchak, no duh. Going to be some regression. But this has been crazy regression. The players, the names on the back of the jersey haven't changed at all. Hardly at all. I mean, injuries have happened, but they're significantly worse.
Yeah, and I think I bought in a little bit to, you know, the Broncos talk. Everybody's like, oh, the scheme will help this guy, this guy, and this guy. And I know better. You know, I'm old. I'm the old head around here. I know better. You know, this players should be scheme independent. If they're scheme dependent, they're not good enough. And there's too many not good enoughs on the offensive line right now. And that, to me, you know, we can get back to this. We can get back to Hackett. We can back to Russ. Missing this. Patrick, injuries. Tim Patrick, Javonte Williams, injuries, all of these things. And we've been working together. We've done 200 shows together now, Nick. You know how I feel. Like, none of that matters if you aren't any good in the trenches. Defensive line has been fixed. Done. Good. Front five, very good. You improved at edge. You improved in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. You did not on the offensive side of the ball. It shows. Nick, it shows.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me is that I believed and thought that bringing in a franchise caliber quarterback raises all ships. I mean, eventually you need to have guys separating. You need to have guys blocking as well. You want to have them both. But I don't know if you're familiar with the work of JT O'Sullivan, a former NFL quarterback for a long time, does a show called Quarterback Class. And I think it's called Quarterback Class. Anyway, he was talking about, like, as a quarterback, what would you rather have out there? And he's like, oh my God, weapons, separators. I can overcome, you know, with checks and stuff, the offensive line much better than the weaponry. If guys aren't getting open, it's going to be a long day for everybody. But that's not true for every quarterback, in my opinion. And I think specifically for Russell Wilson, who struggles in the short game. I mean, we saw it. The Chargers said, you're not making any hot throws. You're not checking the blitz. We're going to run 2 guys up the A gap, and you're going to crumble because Lloyd Cushenberry is going to fall apart like a wet paper bag. And you're not going to make the hot read because you haven't shown to be able to do that recently. And by God, they bet right on that. So I think specifically for Russell Wilson, obviously you want to have the weapons, but I think the offensive line is even that much more important because you need to have the threat of the run game to get the box count right, to have the explosives, because the quick pass game and the hot reads aren't there with him right now, at least.
And to be fair to your point in this, you know, you've heard me negatively say that the league is going more and more 7-on-7. So I get that point of view. I do. You know, and I used to be all about the defense, but now I'm like, why would anybody grow up and want to play defense? You're not allowed to cover. You're not allowed to tackle. They're going to flag you for this. They're going to kick you out in college if you lower your head. Why would you want to play defense? So I understand that. But you still have to be competent.
Yeah.
You can't just you can't be awful in the trenches and expect to be a good team.
No.
What about the Cincinnati Bengals? The Cincinnati Bengals got a little lucky.
Yep.
They did. They were 10-7, eked their way into the playoffs and got hot.
I would say the Bills have a pretty bad offensive line as well. They've not invested in it, but they have a Godzilla at quarterback that is making plays, but they can't really run the ball that well, and Josh Allen is getting hit. So there are ways around it, but those guys are so rare unicorns, and I don't think Russell Wilson is that. I think he's probably more dependent on the function of the offensive line than almost any veteran quarterback because, again, the quick game sucks with him. I'd be curious what the EPA per play for him is on passes that are out under 2 seconds. It's got to be horrible because he doesn't see guys, doesn't get it to them in time, and it's feast or famine right now. He's the big home run hitter that strikes out, 6 times, but hits a home run every 10th at bat. So what does that mean? You have to figure out other ways to get there. He's got to become a good base on balls kind of guy with the run game there in order to raise that on base percentage, because everybody knows the average is overrated. On base percentage is more indicative.
Well, and what has the OPS, and what I always said about that is like, well, you get the Sammy Sosas of the world who beat up on 4 and 5 pitchers, but you face 1 and 2s in the playoffs and you can't do anything against them.
Yeah.
So when you face a decent defense, that's not going to work. That's not going to work like that. We're at 42 minutes here. This is the last time you and I are going to be seen until next Tuesday, I think, next week. So do we want to talk some Jaguars at all? What do we expect out of this game? Because this could be a big, big game in the mismatched uniforms.
I think this is going to be an ugly game for both sides of the ball. I think one thing that the Broncos have going against them here is this is something and I know that what is it, like 25% of every single roster overturns every season, but this is a common trip for the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point. They play in London every year. It's pretty much their home away from home. I feel like the NFL is trying to set them up to be a team that maybe moves to London. Not the first one to come up with that, but it seems interesting that they play there so much. So I think this is a game that's going to come down to, do we see good Trevor Lawrence or bad Trevor Lawrence? In my opinion, when he's good, he's the, what is it? The girl with a little curl on her forehead. When she was good, he was very, very good. When she was bad, she was horrid. I feel like that's Trevor Lawrence a lot of times out there. And
I always think there was a song, when she was bad, she was great.
Well, Trevor Lawrence, I don't know.
That was a song lyric. When she was good, she was good. When she was bad, she was great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Trevor Lawrence, I think it's going to come down to if Trevor Lawrence is good Trevor or bad Trevor. I think the Broncos defense is going to do enough to keep the game close. But by God, man, I've not to be a curmudgeon in here, and I feel like this team, along with this team, have taken all my joy away. So I've become a curmudgeon almost of sorts on offense. But until this offense proves they can do anything, how could you pick this team? I know that the Jags have played poorly, but Jags have talent on all levels of the roster. They have a quarterback who's healthier and playing better. And I think they got some serious dudes on the defense side of the ball. Also, their offensive line. I mean, a lot of athleticism and talent on that offensive line. It's not totally together yet, but I don't know. Then you have all the distractions going on with Russell Wilson. Will he play? Won't he play? The head coach stuff with Denver, all these guys and the trade rumors. I just think it's a recipe for ugliness in Denver. And I don't think this team has the mental toughness or the resolve right now to look inward, be tough, and win this kind of football game. I got them losing.
It's definitely team turmoil to a certain extent. And you look at it, and you say the Jaguars haven't played that well. Now there could be a couple of games that have changed the sample size on this. But you look at them, if I'm just looking at raw numbers, which, stats, lies, damn lies, and statistics, they're 7th in total offense, 17th in points. That tells me they've got a red zone problem too. Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds familiar. I bet it's not as big a problem as the Broncos have been. They're 15th in passing offense, 9th in rushing offense, and Travis Etienne coming back is a dude. He is good. If we've got tackling problems beyond the front, beyond the front 3, beyond the front 5, and the linebackers and safeties, Travis Etienne is the reason why Robinson got shipped out. He looks good. He looks really good. Their defense, 17th in defense, 11th in points allowed. Okay. So it's kind of the opposite. They're the bend don't break guys, but they're strengthening at 11th in points, strengthening in the red zone. Well, who's not good in the red zone? We know that. That's rhetorical. 20th in passing defense, 13th in rushing defense, and they only have 11 sacks despite, having the number 1 overall pick who has looked very good. But this team can move the ball against good defenses. They can. They've got some weapons, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. I mentioned Etienne, Marvin Jones. Trevor Lawrence he will be the real deal. He's really good. It's just a matter of, like you said, limiting those bad plays and getting him. He's so good. I mean, like, physically speaking, he's so good. And you just mentioned team turmoil, all the reasons that how can you pick the Denver Broncos right now? I'm picking the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep. And you're talking about the offense there. Broncos, we saw it last week. What was the difference in the game last week? One big run play off an explosive running back, Breece Hall. That big touchdown, as soon as that happened, I was like, well, there's the game.
Go ahead. Philosophically speaking, going in, Nick, we said the difference between these two teams is one of them has an identity.
Yeah.
It's good defenses, bad offenses. One of them believes, and one of them has an identity on offense. One of them doesn't. Who's going to win that game? Okay. Jacksonville will play hard. They are playing better. They're playing better than last year. I think they're better than their record. I really do. Yeah. The New York Giants are 6-1. Went into Jacksonville and won for the first time. Are they as good as their record? Maybe, maybe not. But Jacksonville has some playmakers and on both sides of the ball. And again, they've got a little bit more of an identity, and they can move the ball. Can Denver? I mean, you keep thinking this. It can't be this bad. It can't be. It's got to get better at some point, doesn't it? Does it? What if it doesn't, Nick?
Yeah, we'll see. And what I'm keeping my eye on here with the Jags is they have a lot of length and athleticism on their defensive front. Roy Robertson Harris is a really fun player on that defensive line, but it's all the former first-round picks that are littering this unit that are the ones to watch here in that front seven. Josh Allen plays really well opposite of first overall pick this upcoming year, Travon Walker. I mean, God, I think Calvin Anderson is just going to get annihilated versus Travon Walker in this game. And then you got a guy who could arguably be the defensive rookie of the year so far, in my opinion. If I was casting my vote right now, Devin Lloyd, who I was a big fan of him coming out. I'm like, I don't really love taking a linebacker in the top 10. This is the guy. I'm not as big on Nakobe Dean. I think he's fine, but I really, really love Devin Lloyd from Utah, and he's playing incredible football so far this season.
Yeah, they spent a bunch of money on Foye Oluokun too, and Foye looks like a liability against the run. He's still lightweight.
Yeah,
these guys blitz a ton. They might not. They blitz Daniel Jones a ton because that's a player you want to put under pressure. I don't know if they'll do the same thing against the Broncos. They might blitz Russ. I doubt they would blitz Rippon. Sit back and throw it. We talked about it last week. Why would I send a blitz after Zach Wilson? Dude, sit back there and throw it. You're going to throw it to me 3 times. Lawrence coming in said, have you guys heard the DIA, that's Denver International rumors, isn't it DIA? Yep. Rumors for a new stadium. I heard they've been looking into land out there for a couple of years since Denver. New renderings show mostly apartments taking over. We haven't heard anything since the first sale. The sale first went through about ownership bought up a bunch of land. It's not something I pay that close attention to, Nick.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that yet. But we'll see. The stadium stuff, I guess, is a nice distraction on everything that's going on in the Broncos world. Do have some injury news to come in here, though, for the Broncos. I guess some movement news. Marlon Mack has been added. He traveled with the team. We talked about it a little bit already. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see Marlon Mack get some action in this game. I think he's a good outside zone kind of fit for this team. He's always struggled in pass protection, not much of a pass catcher as well, but another guy who can take some reps here if they need behind Latavius Murray and Melvin Gordon now that Mike Boone's going to be out for a little bit. Injuries keep stacking up. Good news for the Broncos front. Sounds like Tom Compton did travel with the team. He is practicing. I would not expect him to play in this game, but I think it's a good sign for the post-bye week that Tom Compton hopefully is on the horizon for this team that could use a boost in the offensive line, especially if they do end up trading Dalton Risner, as he's been mentioned, being rumored to be moved so far this offseason.
Who's trading for Dalton Risner?
A team that is desperate for a good pass protection left guard that could trade maybe a 6th-round pick. I could see somebody giving something like that up.
And you'd probably give him up, right? I mean,
for 6?
You'd take
You'd see other guy. You'd be in an
evaluation. Compton's healthy
mode.
and I'm bringing in Compton.
Or a Moody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's
Crazy.
at that point, it's more about getting reps for guys that have longer contracts on your team for evaluation and development purposes.
That ain't Tom Compton, is it? He's
No,
probably got a
that's
1-year deal.
no, but Netani Moody, it would be for him, for that situation, or Luke Wattenberg as well, who took some
That's
guard
the one
and
I
center
keep
reps.
thinking of. Is I'd like to see Wattenberg. He played right guard.
Right guard
Is from memory in the preseason, and he looked okay doing it. I can't imagine him being. Just Reisner hasn't been good since I've been doing this with you for where are we at? 17 games last year, 7 through 24 games. It's a decent sample size for me. That Cushenberry and Reisner aren't it.
I'll push back a little tiny bit on Reisner. I think you'd be fine if he was your 4th or 5th best offensive lineman out there if you had other guys around him, especially because I feel like he is pretty steady Eddie in pass protection, but he's giving you nothing as far as run blocking right now. And we keep talking about it with the Russell Wilson offense. You probably need to have the personnel to run the damn football, and we're not getting that right now.
And I think, you say he's good in pass protection, but if it's a 3rd and long, if he doesn't have the strength to blow somebody off the ball going forward, he's not having the strength in his sets to hold a line either. And he's just getting raced backwards into the whole center. Again, the center of the offensive line is a compactor for your quarterback.
Yep. It's not great. So Scott, any final thoughts on the Jags that we talked to? I think the 2 guys to watch really so far. I mean, obviously Trevor Lawrence, really fun emerging player. We saw a coming out party of sorts with Justin Fields last week, Monday night. Trevor Lawrence has had some ups and downs, but this would be a game to really put his name on the, I guess, in the market or on the map, because the Broncos have the #1 EPA per play passing offense so far this season. Now, granted, they've played a pretty soft schedule. The defense has opposing offenses have not been great. That'll change the second half of the season, but Trevor Lawrence for me, and then those 2 rookies, Travon Walker. I mean, I just pretty much salivated over Travon Walker on the offseason episodes, being like, this guy's an absolute freak. Haven't seen a body type and athleticism like that. If he falls to 9, you're taking him. Skyrocketed up to #1. Not surprising there. And then Devin Lloyd. I mean, 2 guys that I loved. 2 of my guys.
I'm looking forward to watch Devin Lloyd again and just pay attention to watch Walker, not necessarily in pass rush. Those show up. He had a play where they tried to run, basically it was the Jerry Jeudy special. It was a jet sweep that they were going to turn into a screen pass as he kept going. And Travon Walker recognizes it, shoves him, knocks him so far back off his line, and then goes after the quarterback and forces an incompletion. It's like, that was a rookie, man. That was not only, that had the ability to make that play, the recognition and the ability to make that play. Devin Lloyd, to me, the difference in this game is Trevor Lawrence and Etienne. Is there skill players on offense? They've got some guys that I expect to make plays. Who are those guys for the Denver Broncos? We haven't seen them, and until we do, I like watching Etienne run the football. I love watching Trevor Lawrence throw the football, and it should be. Hopefully it'll be better football. That's something else. It's like, what are we asking for? The movie Singles, where she's going through her list of what she was looking for in a man, and it was like this long. And, by the end she got to, I was just looking for someone to say, bless you when I sneezed. At this point, it's like, we're not looking for all these things. Man, I just want to see some decent football. That Jets Broncos game was a disaster.
Yeah, it probably set football back 20 years, unfortunately. Cristiano coming in here, 5 reals coming in saying, evening, guys. Congrats on the great work. Thanks, Cristiano. We appreciate that. Hopefully we can deliver it this far. Now we're in the red zone. Hopefully we can score a touchdown and take it home, unlike the Broncos offense this year. Bada bing. Do you guys think the Broncos will still try to trade players if they beat Jacksonville? Offense doesn't improve much. We saw last year that I think the Broncos are coming off a win, and then you still had George Payton trade Von Miller, and then the team ended up looking laughable against the Browns. Couldn't block the sun from their eyes, let alone stop the run. But I think it's possible.
An 11-10 type San Francisco 49ers win, where the offense still looks completely inept, then they're probably still listening. And again, it doesn't, as you said, will they try to trade players? You're picking up the phone. Even if you say, you're picking up the phone, even if they're not actively trying to trade, they don't necessarily, unless there's Melvin Gordon needs to go. Jerry Jeudy, we can't stand his attitude anymore. Bradley Chubb has said he's not going to play anymore until you get, unless there's like a demand or anything. I don't know that they don't have to trade any of these guys, but you're picking up the phone. You're picking up the phone for sure. But if the offense doesn't improve much, wouldn't take much to look better is a thing. So Yahoo Serious has been very active today. Great job, Nick and the Atlanta guy. Appreciate you. I did forget to change my backdrop today. I forgot. We did our Atlanta show. Wait, let me see here. It's the first time I've done that. Here, I took this picture. That's the first time I've done that today, Yahoo Serious. In the 2 years we've been doing this, that's the first time I forgot to do that. Nick was so late. I only had 15 minutes to figure it out and didn't even consider it. So thank you, Yahoo. Doug Smith coming in green, getting us out of here. Perfect storm of horrible play calling and horrible O-line has been able to really make people believe Wilson is done. 103 rating or higher the last 4 years. Exactly. Is he just completely washed? I don't believe that. He's actually played some good football this year. If you look at the games and his rating and all that type of stuff, he's played some good football. He's played some bad football too. But you get a jittery quarterback behind a leaky offensive line with an offensive coordinator he doesn't necessarily trust, you're going to have a bad quarterback. I don't think he's done, Doug. I don't think he's finished. I don't. I agree with you, Doug.
And you better not be. I think that's the best you can do here in Broncos country. Close your eyes and hope. And George Payton's married to him. Gonna have to figure out a way to make it work for him going forward. And you guys are gonna have to figure out a way to make your morning work tomorrow, because this is it for Scott and I until next Monday. So we won't see you again until after the Broncos have played this game. We'll be deep into either elation and just when I thought giving up, you pull me back in, or full on sell mode and starting an evaluation for 2023, man. I just can't escape, but appreciate you so much. Thanks, Scott, for joining us tonight. Sorry I was a little bit late. Road's crazy, but what can you do? We still got here. I think I still probably came in about the average time of some other shows out here that started on different times than the schedule, but appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you're checking us out on Twitter. Follow Scott at Scout Kennedy. Follow myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at MHI_pod, as well as at BFB_pod. The Broncos for Breakfast. Typically, we're out there Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursday mornings, and Luke and I typically on Wednesdays. However, it's going to be Scott and I for the next couple of weeks because Luke's got some family and rehab activities that he's got for his shoulder injury on the bike, the bike spill that he had. Make sure you guys are following us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. And of course, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing over on YouTube. Scott, thanks for joining me tonight, and good luck with your flight tomorrow. I'm not excited for my flight. We're flying with a cat as well, so that's always a interesting time. He's high needs, so he needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, and, I think it's kind of. I think the cats are kind of funny. You have to wrestle them into their carrier. And then when you have to take them out to go through security, they're like, no, I'm good in here. You put me back in this damn carrier now. Yep. It's not so bad in here. I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I might show up and say hi to everybody tomorrow. I should be in Boston at the airport, ready to get on a red eye during the show tomorrow. So if I've got some decent internet, I'll pop in and say hey.
All right. Well, enjoy Beantown. Hopefully the weather is okay for you. And had fun tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us. Hope everyone continues to choose compassion and kindness. And as always, go Broncos.